Welcome one and welcome all back to Seconds Out Live. I'm your host, normally the co-host, Eamon Khan, as Danny Flexen is unable to make it this week. We wish Danny a speedy recovery. I'm sure he'll be back next week. But in the co-host hot seat is my good friend and head honcho, journalist, main man in the scene of MMA and crossover boxing. There's a little as well too, multi-talented, multi-skills, a special skill that's not been revealed either, but he will reveal that in due course. Is Bloody Elbow's own Dunner Colby. Dunner, good to see you. How you doing?
Oh man, it's great to be here. It's great to be seen, as Chelson used to say. And it's a delight. I mean, I'm a bit heartbroken that Danny seems to want nothing to do with me. So I'm never invited on when he's in charge, when he's hosting. But it's all right, I guess. It is what it is, Flex.
the flexing Corb. That would be like a combination, like nuts and gum, right?
It would be just like that, actually.
Well, putting that aside, of course, Seconds Out Live doesn't exist and it doesn't work without you guys in the chat as well, too, giving us your support through a like, a subscribership as well, too, a comment or a question in the chat. So do keep those coming. And we've got a lot to discuss in the week of boxing that was and to look forward to as well this weekend. We're starting off with, at the top of the news agenda here, is John Fury. I was over in Budapest to cover Tommy Fury and Roman Fury's respective returns to the ring, not in the UK, in Hungary. But John Fury, for the first time, broke his silence on what he felt happened in that second fight with Alexander Usyk and his son Tyson. John was forthright, I guess, in his opinions, and he's right to those opinions. Controversial, of course, as well, too, and that split the public in terms of what they think about it. A lot of people kind of supporting John as well, too, I did see, and maybe turning the tide a little bit. John's had to curry the favor with people and then kind of being a little bit of a villain or someone to get a bit of hate comment every now and again. But I saw a bit of a mixed reaction on that interview across his opinions. Don't know, you watched it. What did you think of what John had to say?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think there's some stuff he says. It's like any John Fury interview. And I did appreciate that, like, he did speak a little bit more candidly. You know, I thought it was interesting his take on like stuff like Cabial and stuff. But yeah, I think there are parts of what John Fury says that are completely nuts, and then there are parts of what John Fury says that make a whole lot of sense. So yeah, I think it was pretty much what you'd expect, except for, I guess, the Sugar Hill stuff.
Yeah, the
right?
Sugar Hill stuff was the most interesting regarding that. He said, by no uncertain terms, that he felt that Sugar Hill was the word he said was incapable of coaching Tyson Fury. He felt that really need to learn much more, just needs maybe a little bit of fine tuning, a little bit of tweaking, and then just to be kept fit. And he felt that he wasn't fit going into that second fight with Alexander Usyk. Just for context, he put on some nearly 20 pounds in that second fight, 19 pounds, I think it was, to be exact. And John was saying, look, I want him to be body beautiful. And Tyson's never been that. And he's always kind of championed the fact that he's not the fittest. He's not, as he always uses the comparison of Anthony Joshua, doesn't he? He doesn't go into the ring like a bodybuilder, as Tyson Fury says, but he goes in fit to box in whatever shape that might be. But John's particular umbrage with that was that he felt that he should have been how he was over in America for the fights with Tom Schwartz and Otto Wallen, where he's a bit more up top and heavier with big shoulders, a big back, is what John was saying. Do you feel that in that second fight that Tyson wasn't as fit as he could be? He wasn't in the peak of his powers, despite taking away, of course, the boxing element, that being older in age, you might slip and you might not be as good as you were, but physically, do you think he could have got to a shape that we'd seen in the past?
Look, I'm not one to comment on anyone's aesthetics, but I think that yeah. Look, I mean, I know that the channel rinsed me for this, but yes, he could have been in better shape. He looked probably. Would it be fair to say, in his fighting career, obviously he took that huge break after he beat Klitschko, and he looked considerably worse then. But within his fighting career, that was probably the worst he looked.
I don't know if that was the worst he looked. In Ngannou, he didn't look very good.
I thought he looked worse than Ngannou. He was heavier than Ngannou, wasn't he?
You thought he looked worse in that second Fury Usyk fight?
Yeah, I thought so. The shorts looked crazy. Maybe it was just the outfit. I don't know, but yeah, I think it was not It just wasn't good, or at least I don't think it was. It was. I just thought, yeah, he could have come in a little bit more svelte, and that might have,
Yeah, potentially.
worked in his
And
favor.
just a little sneak peek into the interview I've done with Tyson Fury's nutritionist Greg Marriott coming up on the channel very soon. He stated that, in his expert opinion, he felt that Tyson was maybe 60% of his capabilities going into that second fight with Alexander Usyk. So that gives you an idea as well from inside.
By the way, he was 4 pounds heavier for the Usyk fight, but then they did that weird weigh-in where they like weighed in their clothes. Remember
Right.
that, where he had like a whole jacket on and everything. So I don't know exactly. Probably around the same as he was for Ngannou, but Ngannou was probably the worst he looked, other than the second Usyk fight. And yeah, I thought he wasn't in the shape he could have been for a
Let's
fight
get
like
into
that.
the chat and see what you guys make of the whole situation. Starting off with Firestarter123, Twisted Firestarter. I've been listening back into some Prodigy recently. It's good gym tunes. Is Prodigy on your playlist, Dunner?
Not
What
all the
about
time, but yeah,
would you ever cover it?
I wouldn't cover it. No, it's not a Two Kings type
What?
of vibe. I don't think Luke
Definitely
could
not
play
Smack
any of the
My
Prodigy
and all that.
songs. Yeah, well, I would definitely do that. Well, I would just do that. I wouldn't.
Moving on, Umar says,
I wouldn't
was
sing
this?
it.
And he didn't finish the rest of his sentence. Sand Shore says, I prefer the silent John. Always good to hear from Big John. Championship Manager 0102, good game that was. Still play FM these days. Not as good as it was in the glory days, though. What are we waiting on? We're here. We're live now. Don't you gotta be patient. Good things to do.
Oh, brother, if you're only starting the chat now,
Does
it
it?
gets real good later on. Umar is not happy. I mean, he's probably gone by now,
Okay.
right? He's probably sick of us. But Umar is
It's
not
not
happy at
it's
all.
not Umar
That
IFO Umar, is it?
I don't think
Okay,
so. I would imagine
interesting.
not.
Probably another Tyson beat Usyk twice. Central is correct. David said Uncle Fester give it a rest. That's a swipe at John. Head's perfect forward for the Glasgow kiss. Definitely won't be attempting that on John anytime soon. That's for sure. More kind of more kind of words towards John Fury. Let's move on forward. Cussy System says, "Good to see you in here, Cuss." Eamon, great watch your interview with John Fury. However, how do you keep a straight face when John is so contradictory? You know what it is? It's one of those things where you're more not in the moment present with everything, and that's a bit of a folly on my side. But John, I think when you listen to John, there are some things that you feel that make some sense in terms of if he felt if he we don't get to see, like, for example, the whole, I thought I'd give him the right of reply with the corner stuff, because we only see what's put out on the or what's captured by those cameras. It doesn't mean that everything is captured by the cameras. It doesn't mean that all the audio is captured. And John got a lot of stick and a lot of slack for that fight with Tyson Fury and Alexander the first time round as to his advice and what he said. And we saw the other side of the advice, and that was painted as the right thing to do. So John got his side point of view across, and he said, "Look, why would we want him to go on the front foot when he didn't have his legs behind him? That would have led to him getting knocked out." And if you fast forward to when AJ fought Dubois, and then Ben Davison's getting stick for trying to go for that knockout, when people are then saying that actually he should have let his fighter recover, and experts in the industry, more established trainers are saying, that I speak to, are saying he should have kept himself on the back foot, recovered, and then gone for it. You then kind of, it puts kind of things into context, and you kind of have to accept it for what it is, because it's not a case of you coming back and saying, oh, actually this is the case, because we only see as much as we can from it and can only deal with what we got in front of us. So in those sort of situations, it's a case of just kind of listening and absorbing and getting the questions in, as opposed to being reactionary to it. I didn't really find his takes like laughable either, to be honest with you. Like when John says something like, if a hater was in front of me and we wouldn't be having a cordial conversation, to put it lightly, like I definitely do believe him that would probably be the case.
Well,
So
I mean, Usyk's friend, the short guy
wouldn't
in Saudi that time, got in front of him, and yeah, they didn't have a very cordial conversation at all. In fact, he got a Glasgow kiss.
And so I wouldn't want to test that out either. And plus as well too, as an interviewer, you kind of have to play it straight faced and be professional. If in the event of something funny does turn up, I've not once yet broke on camera from something funny. I have had a couple of moments where I've had to bite my lip, but certainly not in the John Fury interview for sure. It's very much a professional approach from myself. David says he's a comedian without realizing. Maybe he means one of us too, or maybe he means John. What else have we got to say? Umar, this is a joke. Why go live so early? What time do you want us to go live, Umar? All these channels are going to get us subscribed for this rubbish. Okay, Umar. Where do you live, Umar? We don't need to know all of Umar's details. I'm just glad he's here.
Well, no, I want to know where he lives just to hang out with him.
Yeah, great live show, all 30 seconds of it. I'm not sure what he's referring to. We are live, Vinny, aren't we? Maybe they're just trolling us. Jack Dutton on the 45 says, Jack, good to see you in here. Says, we need AJ versus Fury. Tyson will fight again. Don't know. Yeah, so jumping back on that interview with John Fury, he said a number of things that caught my attention. We obviously covered a lot of topics amongst Eubank Jr. versus Ben, Joshua versus, or Tyson Fury versus Joshua. We'll get onto that in a moment. John Fury, of course, talking about the Sugar Hill, the Usyk, but he also said that the third fight with Alexander Usyk, he can beat him if they do meet each other again, and of course, him being fit, needing to be a big part of it. But do you see that? Do you want to see a third fight between him and Alexander Usyk, and do you feel there's a route to victory for Tyson?
It's hard to imagine, based on the 24 rounds they've already done together, where he would turn it around. I think I wouldn't want to see it right away. I'd want to see him fight at least AJ first. I mean, he's just lost twice. The first one was a little close. I don't think the second one was that close. Even though obviously he got dropped pretty badly and arguably should have been stopped in the first. But I thought it was, in fact, otherwise he had done enough throughout the fight to at least warrant, at least a close scorecard if he didn't win it. But yeah, I think not for me right now. A trilogy, I think that would be hard to sell until he's beating someone else.
That Tyson Fury is retired, or do you?
Look, here's my thing with Fury. I will always respect and have always respected when Tyson Fury announces that he's retiring. I mean, I know that like he's not being serious and he hasn't been serious up to this point. But if he were ever being serious and ever were actually hanging up the gloves, he absolutely deserves it. He's been a phenomenal servant to British boxing, and he's not a Floyd Mayweather. He's not. First off, he's not a smaller guy. He's a big heavyweight who has fought big punchers at heavyweight. He's done how many rounds with Deontay Wilder? 25-ish? No, 28-ish. With Wilder. That takes time off of your life, not just your career. You know, that's a vicious series of fights he had, particularly the first and the third. The second one, obviously, he got the jump. But I think Tyson's been through the wars, bro. That's not to mention he's been dropped a few times. He got dropped by Steve Cunningham, obviously the Usyk fight. So if he says he's done, I think I'm the only person who ever says, like, whether he's telling the truth or not, he should be. And he should have been before the Dillian White fight when he said he was done, or just after the Dillian White fight. I would have said, you know what, happy enough. He absolutely was undisputed. He beat Vladimir Klitschko and then went on and beat Deontay Wilder. And in the interim, I don't believe anybody stepped in and made a very good case for being, you know, the next best heavyweight in the world. So he beat Klitschko and he beat Wilder. And as far as I'm concerned, he was undisputed. I know that he didn't get all the belts or whatever, but he's had a legendary career. And if I were him, I would hang him up.
I echo what you say there. Don't really have much to add on that, apart from the fact that like he does still have life in this heavyweight division. I feel there are some contenders that you feel coming up that you would give him outside of just the top level elite fighters, and that would be Alexander Usyk. That would also give him a real tough time, but he has routes to victory in those fights as well. Imagine Dubois versus Fury right now. That'd be a lot more even than you would have thought maybe a few years back, for sure, with the way that Dubois resurged, especially if he does end up getting the victory over Alexander Usyk, which John alluded to being a major possibility that could happen in that fight off of the back of the two fights with his son.
So who would you like him to fight if you had the book? Obviously AJ. Obviously the answer is AJ. So presuming that AJ fight doesn't happen or that Tyson doesn't want to do it or whatever, what would your booking be? Probably not a trilogy, right? It would probably be someone else in the heavyweight division. You reckon Dubois maybe after the Usyk?
No, but I'm not against the trilogy at all on the basis of that there were two very close fights, and those two, like how Beterbiev and Bivol, it will always be a close and entertaining affair. I also think that Fury and Usyk,
I don't think it was like Beterbiev Bivol or like Taylor Serrano or something like that.
Maybe not in the level of excitement, but it's a close affair between the two of them, and I think that
I don't know how
I
close
think
the second
I think
one
it was still a
was.
close fight. I do.
Look, it was. I think the first one was I think probably closer, just until he got hit in that ninth. But I think that I don't think the second one was. I don't think it was competitive enough to warrant the guy who lost the first one getting another chance when he loses the
Right.
second. If you know what I'm saying.
Well,
Like, I don't have any problem with, for example, Taylor Serrano 3. Like, as a sporting contest, on the basis of the two we saw there in MSG and in AT&T Stadium, there's no reason why Amanda Serrano wouldn't get a third chance there. This is not quite. It wasn't quite that close.
So in terms of competition that you want to see Tyson Fury fight, I know that they're mates, but in amongst them also being friends, he was a standby opponent. They said as much for if I think it was the White fight. If Dillian White pulled out the fight, Joe Parker would step in and fight Tyson Fury. I think that's a good competitive fight with the way that Parker's also had resurgence with his career. At the moment, Daniel Dubois, that's a real good fight. I know Frank has said that he wouldn't like to see the fight personally. I think it's a brilliant fight that sells out a big stadium in the UK, even potentially Wembley. Well, with the way that Tyson Fury sells, I think that probably would sell out Wembley. Those two fights stick out, as do, and the AJ fight as well too. So I think those are probably the ones that stick out at the top. Otherwise, it's waiting for competitors and others in the division to get into a place. But those are three names there that I'd like to see. Caballero as well, if he continues to.
I thought it was interesting that John even mentioned Caballero, and that makes me think that maybe that's someone who has been discussed.
I think it's because he's Gold Star.
Oh, that's right.
So Joe Parker's Gold Star, and I mentioned Joe, knowing that obviously there was a relationship between the family, and I think Caballero is also Gold Star, so that's probably why he wanted to give him that little bit of a push as well too. Okay, moving forward to the fight that we were talking about giving the book to, and that's Anthony Joshua. John had mentioned that he doesn't want to see AJ versus Fury now, Fury versus AJ now, whichever way you want to stick it, because he feels like the horse has bolted on that. It's a few years too late, a few years too gone, and the two wouldn't make for a spectacle that it would have had those years back. You feel the same way, Dylan?
Yeah, he's correct about that. I mean, you want to talk about a spectacle? I mean, it would have been maybe the biggest fight in world boxing. It would have been infinitely bigger than, say, like Ben Eubank in 2021 when it was initially planned, or 2022 when Tyson initially fought, when he had the trilogy with Wilder. If they'd fought then, that's when they should have done it. I'm not enamored with the matchup at this time, but again, both coming off the losses, so it would be. I think it would be still big. It would still. I mean, obviously, it would sell out Wembley. If Dubois and Usyk had selling out Wembley, when we already saw it, and we already saw one guy lose to a jab, obviously there was controversy, but we already we have a fairly good idea of what's going to happen there, and that's still selling out Wembley. I think AJ Fury obviously would as well, and I guess now that Turkey is involved, that maybe they can even bring it to the UK, which would have been unheard of, back during the skills challenge days. So yeah, it doesn't move me, but it's obviously a huge.
How about in
huge
terms
fight.
of competitiveness between the two of them? Is it any more even than it might have been a few years ago as well?
Probably not. No, actually, yeah, maybe, yeah, because like Fury would have been out of the ring a while. You'd wonder what kind of shape he's in. I mean, you saw him over in Hungary.
He
How
didn't
did he
look
look?
too bad, to be fair. Like, obviously, when you think of retirement and Tyson Fury, you think to how he ballooned up, and we've seen these images and pictures of him in the gym and in training. I don't think he looked as good as he did in those pictures, but he didn't look bad at all. I think he looked not too far off where he probably is in that pre-camp, which it seems to be that he's putting out on social media. So he's probably in that stage.
Yeah, I agree. Like, from the little bits of footage you had out, and obviously you would have seen him around the place as well, stuff that isn't on camera. Yeah, he looked pretty good. So look, if Fury's in any kind of shape, the current version of AJ probably shouldn't be super competitive with him. But I mean, you never know. And apparently AJ smacked him around in sparring that one time about 15 years ago. So maybe that'll be playing on the mind. You don't know. I mean, these things do have psychological impact. I think, you can't discount. You can't discount any of that stuff. And yeah, of course. I mean, of course, if it gets to fight night, I'll be
Yeah, I
super
think it's
excited
one of
about that
those
fight.
where you see, we look at it from a hardcore boxing fan lens and perspective more so than a casual boxing fan who probably doesn't watch everything that's been put out on the YouTube channels or what we report. Probably doesn't watch all those videos and probably doesn't watch too much of Seconds Out Live either. Just kidding. I think they watch. Everyone watches Seconds Out Live. However, I think once they see that fight announced, once the video packages get out there, once there's a bit of promo and fight week creeps up, then it starts to get a little bit more electricity in the air, and people start getting more amped up for it. So I think that fight is still a lot of intrigue, a lot of interest.
And by the way, while we're on the topic of that, because I'm seeing in the chat as well. I know you tend to run through, but I'm seeing An Untouchable questioning my assertion that he was, for all intents and purposes, undisputed. I do think I do think that I like he won all the belts from Klitschko except for the WBC, and then proceeded to beat Deontay Wilder. In the interim, he had a load of belts taken off of him. One of them taken off of him within about a day. So I do think, did Anthony Joshua prove himself in that little period between when Fury beat Klitschko and then when Fury beat Wilder? That's what about, or sorry, when Fury first fought Wilder in 2018. That's what, about 2 years, 3 years? Did AJ in that time cement himself as the next top heavyweight? Did he cement himself as a Klitschko level heavyweight? Obviously, he beat an aging Klitschko, but did he have any wins where you were like, yeah, you have to beat Anthony Joshua to be the best heavyweight in the world? At that time, I don't think he did.
We were calling out for fights with Deontay Wilder and others, but Matchroom Eddie Hearn signed Luis Ortiz and then never put them together. There was all sorts going on to keep AJ up on top. He did rack up some good wins as well too, but what the point is that
Joseph Parker aged very, very well, didn't it?
Well, I mean, I think the win ages well. However, the way the referee, who we haven't seen in high-profile fights since, didn't help, nor did the way that the fight engaged between the two of them either. So, yeah, I guess you'd be right in that sense, but it just wasn't a great fight.
But other than Parker and Klitschko, in that great run, he won his belt off of Charles Martin. And then, he had other fights against killers like Takam and against Andy Ruiz. That didn't work out too well. Sorry? Yeah, I mean, like, there wasn't a standout AJ run. I know that Eddie Hearn would be able to tell you that he has this great resume. He has a great resume of people he's lost to. I mean, Daniel Dubois, Alexander Usyk, Andy Ruiz. I mean, like, he's lost to top people, but yeah, I don't know. I just think I think that Tyson Fury, first off, if you go into Fury's house and look through the belts that he has in his cabinet, he has all the belts. He won all the belts. And he beat Vladimir Klitschko to win most of them. And then he picked up the last one off of Deontay Wilder. As far as I'm concerned, that means for that period, for that era of heavyweights, from Klitschko through to kind of where we're at now, yes, he wasn't officially the undisputed champion, but as far as I'm concerned, he was the greatest heavyweight of that time frame.
And what is, if there wasn't that gap of absence in his career, he would have been undisputed.
Well, I mean, they took the IBF off him after about 2 hours. He wasn't even at the after party, and they took the IBF off him. So there was never a chance for him to be undisputed. And then obviously he got it against Usyk years and years later. I mean, you think of, he fought Usyk last year. He beat Klitschko 7 years before that. Like, I think his record and his place as the greatest of his era gets questioned now because of obviously Usyk, but Usyk wasn't really a heavyweight of that era either. He was a cruiserweight of that little time frame. So I think Tyson Fury deserves a whole lot of respect for being, as far as I'm concerned, the best heavyweight of that time frame, and as far as I'm concerned, undisputed in that regard.
So we have a poll in the chat coming in right now. Get your votes in. We have the question that's been asked: who should Tyson Fury fight next? We're giving you the book, as Donna gave to me only moments ago, and the options are Alexander Usyk, Daniel Dubois, and Anthony Joshua. Gauging your interest in the fights that you'd want to see Fury engage in next. So do get your poll votes in. At the moment, I can tell you right now that Anthony Joshua does take an early and surging lead in this poll. Jumping into your conversation in the chat as well too. Please do keep them rolling in, as well as your like and subscribes too. Because System says John Fury has just said that Tommy Fury's performance over the weekend was not great because apparently Tommy has injured his hand again. We'll get to that in our next topic shortly. And Touchwood says, how was the undisputed? Here we go. You've already answered that, Corby. Are you crazy? He is, but not on that subject. Jack Dutton says on the 45, it'll be one of the great what ifs of boxing. Tyson never fights AJ. I also think it's a bit of a people saying that Fury versus AJ is like Khan versus Brook is a big stretch as well, because Khan, more so Khan was definitely past it. Couldn't hold a shot either. Brook was aging and old and bored himself down to 147 to fight Crawford and just didn't have anything left at all. But that isn't what Fury and AJ is right now. It's not Khan and Brook. I think that's a lazy and too easy of a comparison and overreach.
I guess the only concern would be that AJ has now been hurt a lot, and he didn't hold a punch super well against Dubois, which is the last time we saw him. And Fury has always been someone who can get up well and someone whose durability cannot be questioned. But I would say his chin is maybe not the greatest in terms of he gets dropped a lot, he gets put down a lot. And so I think it would be, I don't think it's crazy to compare it to Khan Brook, even though they're way closer to their peaks than those two guys were.
Ngannou again. I know Ngannou is going through not the best of times right now, and some of that seems to be self-induced with the latest development there. But there was controversy surrounding that fight between the two of them.
I want to see Ngannou and Wilder first. I think that probably makes more sense and allows Tyson a bit more time to get ready. But yeah, whenever Ngannou is ready to go again, that will be a while, I would think. My prayers go out to him and everyone in that situation as well. But yeah, it'll be a while. But I would like to see Ngannou and Wilder probably before I'd see Ngannou and Fury again.
Lewis Hart says, any more MVP glazing in this live? Not from me, I think from you, don't it?
Yeah, well, I might glaze MVP when we get to the later topics, when we get to, Chantal Cameron and all of that. But I know for sure that I won't be crying about anyone criticizing the Ring magazine.
Stephen Butler says, block that spam robot and untouchable. No, we're welcome to all opinions here in the chat, and we'll, of course, get to them as well and bat them off or debate them as much as we can do, as long as time permits. So we're appreciative of everyone. As long as they don't stray over any rude lines, we're happy to engage in the conversation. Let's move on to the next topic of conversation. Run it up, please. Vinny, videographer backstage as well. Return of the Furies, that sees Tommy Fury and Roman Fury back in action. And we'll start with Roman Fury, who got a couple of knockdowns. One of them was a big, brutal knockdown where the fella, George Groves-esque, fell down on his leg, but got up remarkably to continue on with the fight, and then eventually was stopped. But Roman, he's got a couple of targets on his back from Chase Demore in the Misfits and crossover scene. What did you think of his return to the ring?
Yeah, I mean, I was reading a lot of criticism of it and a lot of negativity about it, but sat down and watched it, and certainly I don't think that Chase Demore should watch that and go, oh, geez, I'd handle this fella. I think that would be a good competitive fight. I think Roman would probably get the jump on him, but I don't know. I mean, I think you doubt the current day Chase Demore, with his new coaching team and everything, Gary Oliver and all of that. I think you doubt him at your peril. I mean, is he a better athlete than Roman Fury? I would say yes. He's very dedicated to the sport. I don't know how dedicated to the sport Roman is or has been for the last few years. And I think it'd be a good competitive fight. And I reckon Roman looked pretty good though, and Roman definitely set something up for himself with his performance on the night. Which, if you want to get into it, I mean, you were there, you saw it live. I don't think Tommy did.
Roman, I thought looked okay, looked better than he had done before. Of course, the opposition wasn't the most glittering or best opposition in the world, but it was a comeback fight for him outside of the ring for a while. I think he was last in the ring in Brighton, maybe. That sounds about right, on a Wasserman boxing show. Maybe it might have been a boxer show, but I remember particularly the Brighton show that he was out on, and his career hasn't got going since. So for him to get out into any sort of action, I think is what he was looking for, and looking for those big opportunities and paydays, and whether it be in the professional ranks or on the crossover scene. Chase Demore seems to be the obvious one, and they went back and forth on social media off the back of the conversations we had, and Chase seems to have closed the book on it, but surely that's just a case of them ramping up interest. And they were supposed to fight, weren't they, on that Dylan Dennis, that KSI Dylan Dennis undercard, but for that fight pulling or not materializing because of an injury to KSI, or at least his illness at the time, but it's not since rescheduled, and KSI's got his own issues in terms of motivation for boxing. They seem to be on a collision course at some point, Roman and Chase Demore. I don't think it would be as competitive as you think it to be, Dunner. I think Roman's got more fundamentals in the bank, and Chase Demore is still a bit too sloppy, but improved, but it's still a bit too sloppy in the ring for someone like Fury, who's a bit more experienced, or at least a lot more grounded in his stance and his boxing technical skills at that level. So John said it as much that he's still a novice pro, learning the ropes and things like that, but I think he's still a level or two above Chase Demore. Tommy Fury, however, he came back after hand surgery, some out of the ring problems. I'm just going to answer this before I get into this. Thunder Road said, what's going on with Ngannou? That is self-induced. Last thing I remember was his son died, and of course prayers up, and obviously wishing the family in their grief because of the son's death. But also it's come out since that Ngannou was involved with, I believe it was a case where he was on his bike and he has appeared to, or at least the reports are suggesting that he'd struck a young child who has since lost their life. And again, obviously not the best of situations, and prayers go out to that family affected by that too. But that's what Ngannou's, according to reports, has been involved with, and is currently dealing with that situation outside of the media and outside of the spotlight. Jumping back to Tommy Fury, who's in the ring off of his own, coming back from the hand surgery. Yeah, his opponent, John was telling me, had a solid amateur record, and he felt almost tricked by him, considering they watched tape of him, of one version of him, and he turned out to be a much better version of him in the ring. Keenan Hanjanic, he was, gave him the rounds, and they said him much to be letting you in behind the curtain a little bit. Before the fight, they said much that they were before the fight, and in the hotels, they said that they were happy to get those rounds, and because of the way that the hand was, they didn't know how the hand was going to be, how the hand was going to react. So if they got the knockout, great, and if they got the rounds, I know it's a bit of a cliche, and when you don't get the knockout, say it's great to get the rounds in. I think they actually genuinely were happy to get their rounds in. Much more to that as well too, as John had said that in the fight, Tommy had told him that the hand had gone. And to add to that, again, sometimes people think that's skullduggery and a little bit of just managing the situation and feeling that managing that Tommy Fury didn't get the knockout against that opponent. I can say that when I was there in the changing room, after I approached Tommy for an interview and he rejected, which is his prerogative to do, no one's owed any interviews, his hand was wrapped up with a lot of ice on it as well. He was feeling the effects of whatever had happened there. So I don't think that's just a case of managing the situation. It does appear that something has happened, or some niggle has happened from that hand, and might be a problem that needs addressing before they go into a big fight. But the big fight that was called out, Tommy did say, I guess with adrenaline running, was that he wanted Jake Paul, and he was a not so nice word under the sun, but he wants that rematch. He wants a rematch with Jake Paul. John said he's happy to do a rematch with KSI, and sent an offer as well over to, I guess not an official offer, but they're open to that fight. Dunno, this is your ball, this is your court, Jake Paul or KSI. Do you think those rematches happen with Tommy?
Yeah, I think the Jake Paul one probably happens. I think that's like more realistic. Again, no need to get into it. We've talked about it before. The Jake and Tommy fight was a compelling contest. The KSI and Tommy fight wasn't. Jake boxes, KSI doesn't. It just, I think the Jake fight is going to happen. I don't see any indication that the KSI fight would or that it would go any differently. Whether that means KSI would win the next one, I don't know. But I think that it may also be a little bit of trickery John was doing in letting everyone know, oh, the hand's in trouble again, because that's the kind of thing that might pique a Mike Leonardi or a Nikisa Badarian's interest, and have them jump on the phone and say, right, we've got a Tommy fight. right after the Chavez fight. We're going to do it in September. We're going to do it in August. We want to sprint through to it. If they think that Tommy is hurt, if they think that Tommy's hand is going to constantly be an issue, then they might, run a 10-rounder with Tommy. Obviously everything's going to be in Jake's favor. I mean, it was mad, John, saying it would be a 50-50 split. That's an interesting decision, given that Jake is the one who would be bringing the broadcaster and everything to the table. But yeah, I think the Jake fight will probably happen, and the KSI fight.
You don't think it should
won't.
be a 50-50 split?
I never said that. I just don't think that it will be.
Well, so what do you think it should be?
I think it should be 50-50, but in fact, I think John's right, 60-40. I think John's 100% right. But no, I think that Jake will be the one bringing the broadcaster. Certainly, if it ends up on Netflix, you got to give Jake a bonus for even just getting that deal over the line. I would give it at,
because surely
100%.
Netflix are just interested in that if it's Jake and Tommy. So it's not really Jake bringing in the deal. It's Jake presenting Jake and Tommy, and it's Tommy that's interested in them as the other side of the equation, right?
Yeah, but I don't think that Tommy could even get in the door in a discussion like that. Like, I don't know that John or whoever's in charge of Tommy's career even speaks to Netflix in that way.
No, I get that point. Fair.
And they also haven't had they obviously had a big show with the Furies, and obviously Tommy now back with Molly May, apparently, according to the reports. So he's a much more valuable commodity as a media personality and everything. And I'm sure Netflix would be excited to work with the Furies again. But I think that Jake is the one who brings the broadcaster, brings the deal. He's the one who brought them to Saudi last time, which was able to get the fight funded when Tommy was asking for what at the time would have been a monstrous amount of money. Obviously now he's beat the pair of them, and he is a bigger name now. But I think, it's still. I still think that Jake is far and away the A side, despite having lost the last one.
Jake Paul versus Chavez Jr.
DAZN have that one. DAZN pay-per-view, and Jake and Tommy was ESPN Plus, I think. I want to say ESPN and DAZN, little double header, I think. Oh, it was TNT Sport in the UK, wasn't it? BT at the time.
Lewis Hart says, a word on Paul Hughes, Dunner.
Yes, well, I think he'll slide in as a part of the Kakatchi discussion later, but what a man, what a fighter. The face of Irish MMA, one of our great athletes, and I can't wait for the rematch with Usman Nurmagomedov.
We've got here from, I just want to address it. Ice Cold says, bro, who is these two dorks, lol? Dorks? We're alphas, right? You're on mute, Dunner.
Yes, we are alphas. Of course, we're definitely alphas. Well, I know I'm alpha anyway. This guy's a beta simp, but I don't know. Two dorks. We cooked this guy. I mean, his profile picture is Al Pacino really? And Scarface, I think. Oh my gosh, that's cool. To call yourself Ice Cold and have Al Pacino and Scarface as your profile picture, that's pretty sick. Cold.
Steve Butler says, Lewis Hart, sort of, yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Says Roman is a better boxer than Tommy. No, I think Tommy gets a lot of flack. I'm not saying Tommy Fury is a world beater or an elite or anything, but I think it's an easy stick to beat Tommy with, to say that he's just not the greatest boxer of all. There's levels to everything, absolutely, and this level should certainly be appreciated. Certainly, I've learned that being in the gyms and getting bashed up by not even white collar level type of fighters. So I think Tommy gets a bit of a rough ride because he's a bit of an easy stick to. Not a lolcow, but that sort of kind of thing going on. And Untouchable says, bro, you have amnesia. When Fury came back for his return, he could have fought AJ, but he chose to. You know what? I'm going to leave the debate for now. We're going to move on to some other comments. Stephen Butler says, Fury gave AJ 3-4 years to close the undisputed chapter, and he failed to do so. AJ now has 4 losses and is retired. He's not retired just yet. In fact, he seems to want to continue, just waiting for a big opportunity. He's currently injured himself, going in for surgery as well. I believe it's on his elbow too. So Wilder turned down $200 million from DAZN to fight Joshua, and it was for undisputed. It wasn't $200 million, though. Surely it wasn't. Thunder Road says, thanks for information, Eamon. I've not heard or read about that. Why is John Fury on the thumbnail? We click on and hear nonsense. Clickbait is not the one, dog. It's Seconds Out live. We do this every week on Mondays, 4 p.m. As long as everyone is available to do a live show, you can look through the past every Monday, 4 p.m., maybe even 5 p.m. every now and again, just to get the show going here. Like it says here, Seconds Out live every Monday. It's a live panel discussion surrounding the topics of boxing throughout the week. Podcast form almost, but with the added video there as well too for extra value. So do appreciate it, Ice Cold. If you don't, you're very welcome to click off. You're by no means strapped up to your seat and forced to watch it.
Although that is what a beta would be.
That's right. So yeah, stick around, Ice Cold. You're still very welcome. There's a seat for you. Don't worry. Moving on to Matchroom offered. Yeah, Matchroom offered Wilder 200 million, did they? I don't remember that one. Jack Dunn on the 445 says Tommy will never get near a world title, so who cares? Lol. This is the crazy thing, and say who cares? Lol. A couple of weeks back, we had Eubank Jr. versus Ben, who are also not world level either, and certainly have tried to get close to world level and have been defeated at their attempts to get their Eubank Jr. holds an IBO world title, but not considered as to be one of the real or major world championships. Conor Ben as well, a lot younger, a lot more opportunity to prove himself too, but hasn't been in that level of opposition either. Stephen Butworth asks, Eamon, can I ask who gets the most traction for Seconds Out? The Furies, Eubanks, and who else? It really just depends. A lot of this industry is a case of being there at the time and the place and what generates interest in amongst the boxing world at the time. If you're on top of a story or whatever and you get that out, then it will break news or it will get views and things. It really just does depend on that situation. So you could have, let's say, for example, actually, no, I won't name names by any means, but Furies generally, a lot of interest surrounding them. Eubanks, of course, a lot of interest surrounding them as well too. Eddie Hearn does well. Frank Warren does well. Lots of fighters kind of Anti Joshua does well as well too. It's more of a question for Danny Flexen, who isn't here. It's a lot more time at Seconds Out. Who can tell you who's given a lot of who gets a lot of views, but also Seconds Out Live gets a lot of views as well too. There's a lot of jealousy in the industry saying, "Oh, I wish I could be on."
There is a lot of that. There's a guy called Lewis Hart who's always messaging asking to be on.
Yeah, but we say, why would we get you on, Lewis, when we've got Dunner?
Exactly.
Why would we need to look anywhere else? So, but yeah, there's a lot of fighters who do very well. Thunder Road says, watch how Eamon will segue from Tommy Fury, Jake Paul to MVP's latest two signings. Eamon is a consummate professional. We are going to discuss those two signings. Maybe is it in due in a moment. Are you a Fury cult follower or what? I'm going to pass on that one. And what else have we got here? Joseph Miller says Wilder versus Tommy is a good fight, but of a bit of a backstory. Wilder versus Tommy Fury.
I don't think it's like something that's in the offing, but you wouldn't be a little interested in seeing that fight?
You know what? As I said that actually that is a little bit interesting.
They were talking as well in PFL about maybe doing a MMA fight between Jake Paul and Wilder.
Who would you back right now to win Deontay Wilder and Tommy Fury?
Deontay Wilder. Really? Yes.
Like how?
On the basis of Tommy Fury has boxed once in 2 years, and his CV is like journeyman and then Jake Paul and KSI. I mean, come on, Deontay Wilder's like a former world champion heavyweight.
Herndon fella then.
That's true. That's in a couple of weeks, isn't it? About a month and a half away.
When we see that fight happen. Championship Manager 0102 says, what's your views that Parker Manager Challenger has to wait as Undisputed takes priority? I've made my views very clear and apparent here. I think it sucks that Joe Parker, having built momentum and built his way back off that defeat to Joe Joyce, has found himself in a real good position now and was supposed to fight Daniel Dubois, but that didn't happen because Dubois was ill and had to postpone the fight. And then he finds himself into the Undisputed fight and a rematch with Alexander Usyk. I think that sucks for Joe Parker, but the truth is, I would much rather see an undisputed fight for all the belts than see a defense of the three. I think wanting to see undisputed and having undisputed trumps a defense of a title. And unfortunately, that means that Joe Parker has to wait, and he's been promised in return the winner of that fight pending, there wouldn't be a rematch clause in there, which you imagine there probably would be. But that's on the promoter's job now, Frank Warren, to provide him with something meaningful and something worth in terms of value for money for the fans and value in himself as well too in a payday, and that gets him out and active whilst he waits for that opportunity. But from a Parker perspective, it sucks. But also, there's that an even bigger opportunity against the winner of that fight waits for him if they do end up continuing. So wait and see for Parker right now. But I would much rather see the undisputed rather than, with respect, demand a defense of a title. And that's just how boxing goes sometimes. You feel the same way, Dunner?
Yes, I do. I feel, it does happen that way. I also want to answer Thunder Road's question about my background in boxing. I am a former writer for the Daily Mirror newspaper. I worked for the Irish Daily Mirror for a bit and the Daily Mirror in the UK. So I guess I've been writing about boxing for a few years. MMA is more my forte and the influencer scene, but I've covered some big fights too. So I hope that that's acceptable. Google me, and hopefully some boxing stuff will
Do you have
show
to
up.
Google you on incognito mode?
Nope. They have to Google
I don't
you.
think I'm such a bum. I don't think anything comes up.
Probably. That's probably true. They should just look up Lewis Hart instead.
What else have we got here? So would Fury fight Parker if Parker wins the winner of Dubois Usyk? They're close buddies, the fish dog. I think they're close buddies, and I think they're close buddies to help each other to get that big payday. So I think they would do that. They'll put that aside and fight, and it'd be there would be no messing around. It'd be a proper fight between the two of them, and they'd shake hands, and they'd be all happy that they've created a payday for each other. So I think they would. I think if push comes to shove, they would do that. Like they'd mentioned before as well. Joe Parker was apparently supposed to be the step-in opponent against Dylan White if he pulled out for any reason. Either it was Dylan White or a Chisora fight. I'm pretty sure it was Dylan White. They said that was the case. So they've essentially admitted that they would, if need be, would fight each other. Stephen Butterworth says Anthony Joshua versus Hugh Fury is the one. That's interesting. Sort of go with the Fury brother and then go to Tyson Fury.
That actually is a fascinating fight. That's a really, really good, well-matched fight.
Yep. By no means could you count Huey Fury out in that fight. Appreciate the detailed answer. It's harsh on JP as he may have to wait up to 2 years. If Daniel Dubois and Alexander Usyk have 2 fights or more, what is Joe Parker supposed to do? It's so unfair on him. And that's, like I said, that's on the promoter. That's on his promotional outfit and his managerial outfit to manage that situation. I think Joe Parker is no dummy in that, and he knows that boxing politics is what boxing politics is. I think for him, though, what is a little bit different is we're not talking about a fighter who hasn't become champion before. So it's not something that's not been offered to him before that he's waiting on. He's now waiting on the position for him that he's waiting on is to fight for undisputed. So that's better than just fighting for one belt, as he did do against Daniel Dubois. Like he's been world champion before. So I think that from a Parker perspective, although he'll be gutted, it's not a goal that he's not achieved before. Whereas if he waits his turn, he can get something that he's that very few get a shot at. Aaron Touchwood says Joe Parker deserves a title shot. He's shot at the title. Thoughts on Manny Pacquiao coming back? I think Manny Pacquiao coming back is. I imagine he just does it because he wants to ramp up interest in his electoral campaign. I presume that's what's happening over in the Philippines. I'm not in touch with news in the Philippines or electoral runs, but he has expressed a desire and ran before for presidential election over in the Philippines. And I think that's what he does. He ramps up the interest and spotlight on him and hopes that turns into votes. In terms of actual in-ring competition, seeing those clips of Manny in his last exhibition wasn't great and was quite worrying. And Barrios is tough, man. Barrios is active. Barrios is an all-out brawl type of fighter. And I think there was serious concern about that fight going ahead. And I'm not sure how Manny has been able to slip into the rankings where Barrios is able to defend against him for the world title. That doesn't quite make sense to me. So it's a question for Mauricio Sullivan as well. But I'm not very much looking forward to that fight between the two of them. I don't think it's a money thing either. I'll be very surprised if Manny Pacquiao is the one. Well, to be fair, those presidential campaigns can't be cheap, can they, Dunno?
No, Conor McGregor's about to find that out back here. But yeah, presidential campaigns not cheap at all.
So, as I mentioned before, Thunder Road, I'm going to go with more of a direct than any sort of thought through segue. But we're talking about Jake Paul, we're talking about MVP, and he's added two very valuable females over from the UK into his growing female stable. As now Chantal Cameron, who had a long stint at Matchroom Boxing, a short stint at Queensberry Promotions, now begins her time at Most Valuable Promotions alongside Savannah Marshall, who was over at Boxer. She's now jumped over to MVP as well, looking for a big opportunity. We know what fight she wants. That's against Carissa Shields. Maybe that gets made in the future with the back and forths that they've had, adding Jake Paul into the mix as well too. But MVP, pick up Chantal Cameron and Savannah Marshall. Two big gets, you feel, Dunno. What can they do for Cameron and Marshall, who have been to the top of the tree?
Yeah, I mean, look, MVP appears to be just like sweeping up all of the female boxing talent, and obviously, female boxers believe that's the best place for them. So yeah, respect. I mean, Chantel Cameron and Savannah Marshall, two of the biggest stars in women's boxing. I mean, it pretty much leaves Clarissa with Salita as like the only major name. I guess maybe Sky Nicholson and Eddie. But in terms of the major names that like sell tickets and pay-per-views, or get viewers in on DAZN or Netflix or whatever, it pretty much leaves those two as the only two who aren't with MVP at this stage, and obviously Katie Taylor. But Katie Taylor's last two fights with MVP, so
okay, we'll wait to see what happens there with them. Moving on to our next topic, and that is Anthony Kakatchi, who was out against Lee Wood this weekend, and it was I don't think it quite bubbled or brewed into the big fight of the year contender that it could have been, but it was a spirited effort from Lee Wood, who's always been spirited in the ring and tried as much as he can to get victories, pull victories out of the jaws of defeat. He did that against Josh Warrington. He's done that against Mick Conlon as well too, and really provided some entertainment that will live long in the memory for boxing fans for very many years to come. This won't be a night that he'll want to remember for too long against Anthony Kakatchi, who was a bit too much, a bit too strong, a bit too fresh for Lee, who eventually the towel was thrown in by Ben Davison after he turned his back and was hurt by a body shot after he was sent crashing to the ropes and given a standing count for the ropes holding him up. But Lee will assess his career right now. It seems to me that there are still fights out there, and maybe that Josh Warrington rematch, if a rematch with probably Josh or Mick.
I think wrap it up. I think Mick probably should have wrapped it up too. I mean, I don't know how much more fights he's going to do, but both guys who have done enough. I guess Lee has been world champion, which is obviously something that Mick still hasn't achieved. But both guys have done enough. They're both they're both great fighters. They're both respected.
You're talking about Josh and Mick here.
I'm talking about Lee and Mick.
Okay.
And maybe Josh too. In fact, yeah, Josh too. That period of boxing, and I hate that a huge chunk of their biggest earning years was the COVID years. But that period of boxing is over, and I think those guys should not get themselves any more hurt. I did not like the way that Lee Wood fight ended. I think Anthony Kakatchi, what a fighter, what a great story, and a great representative of Ireland. But at the same time, he's a very good technical boxer. He's a very skilled boxer. He's a world champion. He is not necessarily what you would call a concussive power puncher. And if you're getting smacked around the ring like Lee Wood was by someone like Kakatchi, you shouldn't be putting yourself in more danger. And I want, for Lee Wood's sake and Lee Wood's safety, and for his legacy, I want him to be done. And I want I'd love Mick Conlon to be done too.
Interesting. I would have thought there's still some currency and there's still some. I wouldn't see it as a dangerous fight for Josh and Mick if they were both to fight each other, nor would I see it if the winner would go on to fight Lee Wood. But then you've also got to ask, what does Lee Wood do in that time? And what fight is there for him as well? I don't think they would go in for a Kakatchi rematch if they had it contractually there for them. So that also puts a spanner in the works of those sort of plans. But maybe it is just a Josh and Mick kind of thing. They could do that over in America or in Ireland or Leeds and build a great fight and great event.
I mean, look, if Mick wants one last, outing in Madison Square Gardens Theater or something big like that, then I guess maybe the Lee Wood rematch would be good. But I like them both too much personally and have too much respect for both of their legacies to want them at this stage to keep taking damage. And I really think, I mean it in the most caring way, in the most empathetic way. I'm not really empathetic. I've never been in there like those guys have been in there, but I don't want them to get hurt anymore. I think Stephen Butterworth in the chat is right. Josh Warrington, Mick Conn, and Lee Wood should all hang them up.
Pretty convincing argument. You certainly won Stephen Butterworth's vote there. There is a vote going on.
And by the way, to answer his other question, what's to do with Jake Paul focusing all his effort on the women's market? It's a great question. It's an untapped market. They haven't quite transitioned into being mainstream like the women's MMA fighters have. And I guess Jake has done a good job of picking up on people like Amanda Serrano and Katie Taylor. I mean, obviously, Eddie Hearn promoted Katie Taylor phenomenally well. But people like Amanda Serrano, he has picked up on someone who clearly has a following, clearly has an ability to draw fans and sell tickets, but is making next to no money. And so for not that much money by Jake Paul's standards, he's been able to make Amanda Serrano a superstar, and he's been able to tell a great story. I mean, it benefits him as an individual to make him look like this charitable, this great guy. And he's been able to put on gigantic fights, the two Katie Taylor fights. So not to mention a few other big Serrano fights in Florida. And they championed the 3 12-minute rounds for Serrano as well. So I think it's just a good PR move for Jake. It's a relatively inexpensive move in the grand scheme of things. Like, you don't see them going out and signing like world champion men, because like you can get Savannah Marshall, who is creme de la creme, like pound for pound, top 5. You can get Amanda Serrano, one of the pound for pound greatest fighters in the world. You can get Chantel Cameron, or maybe the pound for pound number 1, beat Katie Taylor. I don't know. You can get all these people. Well, okay, quote, obviously, is number 1. But you can get all these people for, like, I mean, relative to a Rolly Romero type of person, pennies. So, of course, like, are you saying that, like you can get Amanda Serrano and the ticket selling ability she has for a fraction of what you would get for someone like Mario Barrios or Rolly Romero, and I think that's just good business.
Okay, good business indeed. And we've got one final bit of business before we close up shop, and that is Fisher versus Allen 2, the rematch this weekend. Romford Bull takes on the White Rhino, and we're hearing whispers that Johnny Fisher is very much fired up. He's angry, he's annoyed, he's very much wanting to get whatever it is, revenge, not in the form of a defeat, but wants to make sure there's no doubts as to who won that fight the first time around, and he gets that opportunity, and to his credit, takes the immediate rematch against Dave Allen, who felt that he wouldn't take it and didn't want him to take it either, considering that he likes Johnny but won't like him enough to not throw punches at him this weekend as they both battle it out. 2 heavyweights of a level, of course. Johnny got a bit more of a ceiling, it seems, given his youth and potential. Dave Allen saying that he's kind of reached his, and both are kind of saying that a British title on their record would certainly be something where they felt they would overachieved if they got it. But this rematch is intriguing. This rematch is certain to get a lot of eyes and get a lot of spotlight on it.
Yeah, it's certainly a big rematch. I saw Eddie tweeting about how there's only 100 tickets left. There's a little bit more than that, but they should probably have the Copper Box or the Copper Bosch filled out on Saturday night, and I can't wait. I mean, the first fight was a lot of fun. I think Dave Allen won the first fight. I think that was like one of the more scandalous judging decisions that I've actually watched. I don't think I didn't see the full Josh Taylor and Jack Catterall fight the first time. I didn't see it live as it was happening, but yeah, that that was a Catterall Taylor level of robbery as far as I'm concerned. So has Johnny Fisher been able to improve in these few months? I don't know, and it'll be interesting to tell. But yeah, I think it's gonna be a hell of an atmosphere in the Copper
Fair
Box.
enough. I agree.
What do you reckon?
First of all, on that point about Taylor versus Cattrall, I was there over in Scotland. One of the best atmospheres I've ever witnessed,
And one of the worst
and one of the
decisions.
worst decisions as well too. And it was that I wasn't, of course, the insider for Fisher versus Allen, so I can't quite equate and relate it. I do kind of get the argument that it was still a close fight, and maybe there was a point or two in it, whereas Taylor versus Cattrall was so cemented in my mind that Cattrall had come out a clear winner. And of course, given the stakes, like this is a fight where the decision should have gone the other way, and it was for the undisputed titles at super lightweight. So that moment has been taken away from Jack Cattrall, and that's kind of what really tips the scales towards that sort of end. But look, it's a good fight between the two of them. My question would be whether in the amount of time that they had since that first fight, which isn't that long ago since, so you got that short gap of time, can Johnny Fisher sprint up the mountain of experience and have that edge over? Can he learn and soak up all that he needs to turn that into more of a resounding victory for him? And I would be inclined to think that there isn't enough time to do that. They could work on a few things.
What I would say is, I think it's more likely because neither of them could have gained much experience at all. I mean, any experience in the ring since then. But I think that it'll be who's fitter, who has got that much fitter since that fight. And I think it's more likely that Johnny Fisher would, right? He's got the facilities around him to make it a bit easier than Dave Allen. He's got a lot more money. So yeah, I think that's it's about who has done the road work and who has got themselves in shape. I mean, again, for me to be talking about this stuff is ludicrous. But yeah, whoever's got the work in, and whoever's put the work in and gotten fitter is going to win that fight.
I think the fight hinges on who's going to be smarter in the ring, boxing IQ here. I think it's for Johnny to show his.
Well, then Dave Allen's going to win.
So this is the thing. So you know what? Do you know what caused that knockdown in the first fight? They clinched and they went to break. The referee didn't say break. Dave Allen said break, and Johnny broke, and then Dave hit him with that shot. That's what caused that knockdown. Pretty genius
on Dave Allen's side.
Schoolboy and rookie error from Johnny, but you'd expect that from someone who's learning their trade and applying their trade in the game. They've said as much as, like, look, if they box a little bit more, then they get it. So they're going to bank on their boxing. So Johnny's got to be smart in the ring to keep it at that and not get drawn into a fist fight or drawn into an error like that in a high pressure moment. He's just got to keep his composure and keep concentrated. If he can do that, I think he wins a good victory in a fairly unentertaining affair. But I just don't know if he's climbed that gap enough yet. It's for him to prove that. So we'll see on the night. That's about everything. But before we do close out, Dunno, we've got the results of our much anticipated results for the poll. And we asked people in the chat today too as to who they'd want to see a fight next for Tyson Fury. And the options were in the poll. They were Alexander Usyk, they were Daniel Dubois, and they were Anthony Joshua. I can't quite see the poll results here, Vinny. So if you could get them into me whilst we're just closing out the show, then I can read them out to the chat. But before the poll did close, Joshua was in a big lead, and the results are as follows. We have at last place Daniel Dubois with 15% of the poll. Second place, Alexander Usyk with 24% of the poll, and Joshua with 60% of the poll. So people wanted to see that Tyson Fury versus Joshua fight. Any bit surprised at all, Dunno?
No, I don't think so. Not super surprised. I think that is a fair enough result.
Wicked. And one final time before we close out, I'll go to the chat. What's your views on Nick Ball? 23-0-1. Good fighter. We'll discuss Nick Ball another time.
Just by the way, he should have lost his title to TJ Doheny by disqualification. He kicked him between rounds. I've never seen the likes of it before. He shouldn't be world champion right now. He should be 22-1. But he's obviously a great fighter. He's obviously one of the best at the
Thank you
weight
for
at the
sharing your
moment.
background, Dunner. Thunder Road gives his appreciation. He also says Dave Allen's earning more money. Was this decisive Johnny Fisher victory? Fish Dog says Dave Allen, if his cardio good, beats Fisher again. Dave has always had potential and natural talent, just lazy. Dunner, whilst I'm reading these out, we obviously give the last word to the co-host. So just think of what you want to say in.
Oh, I'm thinking about it. And the word, it's going to be a very interesting one.
Stephen Butterworth says Dave Allen called break himself last time and Fisher fell for it. That's how the kick knockdown happened. Yep, as I did explain. Can Johnny Fisher box himself to a 12-round decision? It's very unlikely. Allen is sneakily talented. He's got a good punch variety. Let me just double check how many rounds that is as well too. Is it 12? I can't remember. I think the first fight might have been 10. So let's have a
Yeah, I mean,
look.
neither of them are 12-round fighters, are they?
It's a 10-round fight, so again, that might change the way you look at the fight as well. But it's a 10-round fight between the two of them, and not in Saudi Arabia either. It's in the UK as well, and it's in Johnny Fisher's back garden. So whether he sees that a pressure or whether he sees that a privilege can only be found out on the night. So yeah, that's about everything for this week's edition of Seconds Out Live. I want to thank everyone for tuning in, clicking the like button, subscribing, sharing a comment in the chat as well too, and get those comments in after the fact as well. We do respond to as many as possible for those who didn't view this live. But for now, I want to thank you guys again, and I want to thank Donna Corby from the Bloody Elbow for jumping in, saving the show as a good man would do. Donna, you have the final and last word. What is it you want to end the show on?
The last word is goodbye. No, I'm joking. Follow Bloody Elbow. Follow at Take Ames on Twitter. Ames with a Z, and that'll get you all my opinions because I reply to all of his tweets. Bye.